No problem.
I was just about to post this in my group here.
Chandler, your microphone volume is very low.
I won't be speaking much, so that's okay.
Okay. Hi, John. Thank you for meeting us here at the Compass session. Please feel free to turn on your camera if you want.
Good evening, good afternoon, as you know you are. So, hi everyone.
Hi. So we're just waiting for a couple people to arrive, and then we can start. Hi, Aki. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us today.
Very nice to meet you.
Where are you speaking from?
I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, great. And you, John?
I'm in Lisbon, in Portugal.
Oh, vamos falar português então.
And no falo.
Ai, oh, too bad.
Where are you based?
I am in São Paulo. I live in São
Okay.
Paulo. I arrived here in 2023. And Chandler, who
I'm
is
based in
the
Seattle, but
founder.
I'm also part of the half the year in Brazil, in Sao Paulo.
Nice.
Hmm.
I love it. Yes, maybe, hopefully next year will be more. um,
Oh, we have a new here. So what we'll do, because we only have 1 hour, I will shortly introduce the Compass session here, and then Paul, I think how the Compass sessions work, they are a free space for knowledge sharing, and we invite many founders or directors or counselors who work in medtech or startup or invention area to share about their work and company and their vision mostly. And this session happened, we started in the beginning of the North Hemisphere summer, so in June, and we had a lot of people coming and sharing. So it's either you have a presentation, you have something you would like to share or a structure, it can also be a discussion. And please, people who are joining us today, you are free to raise your hand and ask any questions. So my name is Claude. I forgot to present myself. I work at 360 Social Impact Studios with Chandler here. And thank you, Paul, for joining us today. I don't know if you have any questions for us before we start.
No, thank you, Claude. It's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to see this group, and yeah, look forward to getting underway.
Great. Well, over to you all. This floor is yours, Paul.
Great. Okay. Well, let me share my screen. That's a good way to start here.
Oh, I would like to add before we start, this session is recorded and will be shared to you, Paul, before to be shared. With your consent, we will share it on our website.
Of course. Yes. No,
Okay.
that sounds great. And looking forward to a good session. I think since we're a small group, we can certainly do questions and answers throughout the discussion. No need to wait until the end. So, at any point, if anything that I'm talking about raises questions, just feel free to stop me. And of course, I'll be presenting, so I can't see if a hand goes up. So just feel free to start talking. No worries if you interrupt. So let's get started. I like to start with some basic objectives. So we're going to spend an hour together. What are we trying to achieve? Number one, I'd love to just get a sense of what are some of the go-to-market challenges that we have. And number two, think about some very tactical ways to resolve them. I think we all can get inspired by strategy, but as business leaders, we have a million things to keep an eye on, and sometimes we just want ideas. We just want best practices, tactics, and I will hope to give you some of those today. And finally, some ideas for how to bring intelligence into the go-to-market plans. Obviously, intelligent founders like yourselves, we've got that part covered. I'm thinking more about third-party research, data, ways to mitigate risk, and I work a lot with my clients on that. Since we're a small group, maybe we could just go around real quickly, and the founders could each introduce themselves.
Yes, let's go. John, if you want to start.
My daughter's joining me now. Yeah, so basically, I have two startups running at the moment. One of them is called Feral Ventures, which is basically a venture studio launching companies focused on reconnecting people back to nature, dealing with or being able to deal with climate change and restoring fully functioning ecosystems. That doesn't pay the bills at the moment, but what does pay the bills is basically running in conjunction with various companies as a freelance innovation consultant, um, basically running experiments on behalf of multinational companies. As a quick introduction.
Thank you, John. Aki, if you would like to turn on your microphone and shortly present yourself.
Sure. I've built about 10 companies. I come from banking, investment banking. I have a venture studio, also investing in companies, work with tier one VCs in the Valley for product market fit and go to market. Or when things go wrong, they pull me in typically to help find a way.
Great. And where are you speaking from today?
San Francisco.
Ah, sorry, it's true, you told me. Okay, next one. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name well. Jitesh, if you would like to turn on your microphone and shortly present yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm Jitesh. I was also based out of San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm working or building in platform. It's in the energy sector. Basically, it's providing it's an AI platform which predicts and something in the energy segment. So we're building that, training the models right now, and we're planning to go live by end of this year.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
These are great, great concepts, and I sense that this is a pretty experienced group. A lot of times, the presentations that I give of this nature are to earlier stage founders, perhaps people doing it for the first time, definitely not for the 10th time. So very impressive collective experience across this group, and of course, if you've run a startup or you're running a venture studio, a lot of the discussions around go-to-market strategy are well known to you. So with that in mind, the content I present might be more basic than we're looking for. And if that's the case, I would say let's use the Q&A part of the discussion, which will be throughout the conversation, to kind of tailor it to your needs. I think that's an advantage of having a smaller group. But before we get into it, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on myself and why I'm here talking to you today. So, I think, our work doesn't define us, right? But it does tell a lot about where we've been, where we're going, what we're all about. And certainly that's no exception for me. So, I spent a lot of my early years in the media and advertising business. I was a digital media agency founder. And I used to initially I started by serving SMBs, small businesses, entrepreneurs like yourselves, just helping them with digital media strategy and program management. And eventually, as you can see from these logos, started to get real work from big brands, and ultimately my business was acquired by another agency, and it was a good experience because you get access to a lot of diverse clients. You start to see how things are different in the packaged goods or the consumer electronics or the beverages or the travel space. And some things are the same, some things are different. So digital marketing is a great lens through which to see the world of business. Eventually, I took that experience and I went to Google, where I worked primarily in the automotive category. I worked on a lot of big global brands and even led strategy for the global automotive business on the whole, at a time when it was about $1 billion business. So, it was very exciting to be at Google. I left about 7 years ago, so the company has evolved further since I left, of course. But great experience, really, just to be you're kind of on the forefront of technology and to work with clients who understood the importance of our advertising and marketing solutions, but also really looked at us as partners in their technology transformation, right? And pushing us to really kind of redefine what a partnership looked like. The last couple of years of my corporate career, I spent in a very different world, education and workforce development, ed tech. And so that was also my introduction to working with a lot of nonprofit and government clients. And really, it was all about the mission. There's a lot of disruption happening in education. There's a lot of broken pathways between what people study and what they do to employ themselves and make a living. And so what we're trying to do is create more opportunity and more economic mobility and make sure that people could do the work that they're passionate about, to be their best selves in the organizations that they join and in their career path. So I enjoyed that work. Eventually, it drove me back to my entrepreneurial roots. And so now, today, I work on one hand as a consultant, a fractional chief revenue officer, a strategy partner to growing companies. So I work with early stage companies up to about Series A. I like to think, the companies that have more building to do than maintaining. And a lot of times that means they've had some success, some commercial, some commercial success or revenue traction, and ultimately need to build a playbook for how to continue to grow, continue to scale. I also am founding a company of my own, and we're in the SaaS space. It's an AI product for conversational role play. So basically, creating simulated conversations with a chatbot, totally voice, totally two-directional dialogue to help people practice conversation. So interview skills, pitching investors, negotiating with clients, that sort of thing. We have a great app for it. If anyone's interested, I'd be happy to share a demo account and you can see for yourselves. But that's a little bit about me. And really what we're here to talk about is some of the common go-to-market challenges and solutions. Now, ordinarily when I run these workshops, I present people with this live poll, but I think we can skip this. We don't need to poll a large audience. I will show you what some of the options are: defining your target market, articulating your value prop. You can see the rest here on the screen. Or maybe it's something totally different than what's on this list right now. But I'm happy to sort of open it up to the audience. So you tell me, what are your top go-to-market challenges? What are you struggling with?
I'll give it a go. So I think initially, depending on which kind of startup I'm looking at, it would have been kind of more kind of products. But I think later startups has been way more channel focused. Choosing the right channels. It's all about channels now, I think.
Interesting. Okay. That's a good one, and certainly a complicated one that is very divergent when you're on day one versus day 180 or 365 or whatever it might be. So thank you for that, John. I see at least one person has voted here, including the one you chose, John. We're talking about articulating the value proposition as well as packaging and pricing. So any other input from the group? And Claude and Chandler, feel free to jump in with your own thoughts as well.
Absolutely. I'll see if anybody else wants to jump in though first. And I think I'll go then. I guess for Klausy and I, we've been working on this. We literally, our last meeting was just about this, about the value proposition and packaging and pricing our offers. I think, as we start to grow and expand our own service capacity, we find ourselves asking, are is the right value proposition, for the right customer, and what channels do those go through? And then, the value proposition for one of our groups, one of our targets, corporate venture capital, is totally different than that of academic institution that we work with, right? Um, and so defining and clarifying that are the challenge. And I think we've done, I don't know, I've talked to you, Paul, recently. So you've heard some of the work that we've been doing over the last year at 360 of refining our offerings. And I think these are the largest challenges for me. They're all
Absolutely.
challenges at different points, but these are the ones that are most pressing.
Yeah, that's helpful, Chandler. Thank you. And looks like we got a few more votes. So there's a lot of consistency here, right? And certainly unanimity in picking the right sales channels. So I think why don't we just get right into that one and let's talk through it. So what I like to do here is provide a couple of talking points. I like to provide an example of a well-known consumer brand, usually consumer, some cases B2B, um, that has modeled a good approach, something that may or may not work for you to just copy paste, but at least could be illustrative. And then we'll get into some sort of tactical way to put that to use. So when we're talking about picking the right sales channels, I think you want to sort of clear your mind of all the chaos because it's a complicated world out there, right? And start with some very basic duality. So there's direct and indirect selling. We can sell to customers, we can reach those customers indirectly through partners, and each has its own virtues. I see this with Atlas Primer, my startup right now, where we can go to our network or we can ask for a referral and get right in front of that customer, which is an efficient way to pitch the product, get feedback, and if we're good, also start to get some traction on a deal flow. Selling through partners is much more of a strategic play that allows us to hedge against our own lack of an established brand, our own potential lack of credibility if you're new to the space, right? You're the new kid on the block. Sometimes going hand in hand with somebody who's more recognizable can do a lot for you. Now, the other consideration would be, well, where is your bread buttered? Who are these customers? So in the case of really all of these, Jitesh, I'm assuming that your predictive analytics platform in the energy space is this a B2B solution, B2C, or both?
It'll be a both B2B and
Okay.
B2C. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So at minimum, I mean, if we're running a venture studio, then of course, this is directly supporting businesses. In Jitesh's case, there might be a direct-to-consumer application, and then there's always government. Don't forget government. A lot of people want to ignore selling to government because why? It's complicated, it's slow, it takes a lot of patience, and frankly, a strong stomach. But of course, there is the upside, which is that they don't run out of money usually. They are somewhat predictable in their budget cycles. And so there are some things that are actually easier if you have the patience. And so, really think about where in that mix do you land? And of course, the decision-making process is going to vary. Now, it's hard for me to come up with a one-size-fits-all discussion for a group like this, where you're all sort of differentiated. But I think that these are good talking points, and we can certainly unpack any of these points if anyone has questions. The last thing that I'll say is, one of the early decisions to be looking at is channel partnerships, like what I described earlier, versus a pure strategic alliance. And what I've learned is that these are names and they sometimes get confused. So if we were to really break down the difference between a channel partnership and a strategic alliance, I think what it comes down to is how much access are you giving to sort of the back room, the back office. So in a channel partnership, it basically comes down to a handshake agreement where you're going to make a deal with a reseller, and you're going to say, hey, look, either we go to market together and we have an incentive for each of us to sell each other's goods or services, or if it doesn't quite work that way because of the nature of the market or the product, at minimum, like with a revenue share, partner A can tell partner B, here's everything you need, and every deal you close, you're going to get X%. That's not rocket science. The strategic alliance gets a lot more interesting, especially in the early stage, because you're actually letting the outside world influence the product you're building. If you're running a venture studio, I'm sure at some point you're asking these companies that you're supporting, hey, what's your feedback? What could we do better? Right? And how can we weave this into a better program experience for a future cohort? Or the investor introductions that we make, how useful are they? What more should we be doing or not doing in order to support you there? So this is just some things to be thinking about when you're evaluating the right sales channels. And I think we can take a lot of inspiration from Apple, right? Because Apple really, I mean, if you look at their channel strategy and you boil it down to one word, it's about discipline. What Apple has done is not only have they built products that are the best in the category, and they've consistently done it for years and decades, frankly, but what they do is they really control the other aspects of the experience. So if I buy an iPhone and use it and love it, that's great. But Apple wants me to enjoy the process of actually shopping for the iPhone. And if I have to get it serviced, they want me to enjoy that process. And if I start to use some of Apple's value added services like Apple Music or Apple Photos, well, those have to be as good as the hardware it runs on too. And that's, retail is a good example because we all have been to that Apple store, or we all know at least what it looks like. Um, those people are trained in a very kind of rigid programmatic context. They know not only how to push buttons on the cash register, so to speak, but they also know how to embody the brand values. And that's really where marketing and retail sales come together, because they know that part of being bought into the Apple brand is that experience that you had at the store, and one that you presumably wouldn't mind having again. Now, they've over the years also had to balance that with their growth ambitions. And as the business matured, and as the first iPhone gave way to the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 11, and now the iPhone 16 Pro, uh, at some point, growth tapers off. And so now they've started to look at other partners. But when you buy an iPhone at Best Buy, you'd be hard pressed to find it for a penny more or a penny less than what you get in the Apple Store. And that's part of the control that goes into it. They control that sales experience because that builds that exclusivity, an exclusivity that feels it's a point of pride, right? For the company and for its consumer. And that's really about brand integrity. So if you were to think about what would this look like for your business, here's a simple exercise. Think about all the channels you could sell through. Everything from going through your personal LinkedIn network, joining referral communities and asking for introductions, picking some of your complementary product and service providers and trying to get handshake deals as resellers. No one on this call is going to be selling through retail based on what you told me at the start, right? We're not putting our products on a shelf necessarily, but Jitesh, you might be taking your energy platform for predictive analytics, and you may find verticalized marketplaces where this solution can be purchased. If you're in the venture studio business or you're doing innovation consulting, it looks a little different. There isn't a vending machine for those per se, but it's largely relationship driven. So if you were to make a laundry list of all those channels, number one, think about reach. So are your customers there? And reach really means the propensity for them to be there as well as the volume. So if you can find 100 customers in a community, that's great. But if that community has 100,000 people worldwide, well, that could be challenging for you to actually find those 100. It's like a needle in a haystack, right? So that's the reach aspect of it. Think about scalability. Can the channel grow with you? So is that community itself growing? Or these partners that you're shaking hands with, are they themselves on a rocket ship to the moon? And every bit of progress they make, you have a chance to enjoy some of that traction? If so, then that's a high score. Um, Efficiency is an important one. So, some of these channels might involve a lot more selling. I'm sure you can relate to the idea of having to do a lot of customer education. It's an expensive reality, especially when you're selling a technical product or a product that involves any perceived risk. You have to build that relationship. You have to educate them on why they should go with you over a competitor, and even more importantly, why they should go with you over the status quo. And that can be even harder. So not all channels are created equal, right? Because the people that those channels give you access to, well, some of them might be a little more warmed up, a little more educated, ready to buy, but they may also have different objections. They may throw more curveballs at you during the process. So this is an important thing to evaluate really honestly. And then finally, speed. How quickly can you start? A channel partnership might take a few months to stand up. If you have to evaluate partners, pick the best ones, meet those people, make sure you sort of aligned to the same goals, and then figure out the legal, figure out the revenue share, all the governance and all that. Pretty soon it becomes a big job. Is it worth it? Is a question you need to ask yourself from, in terms of the speed. And the relativity is what's really meaningful here. So they might all be slow, or they might all be inefficient. But the relativity of that is going to help you narrow down. So I'll pause here for a moment while we're talking about picking the right sales channels. And if anyone wants to throw out one of their own sort of unique scenarios or ask a follow-up question. Okay. Well, we will move on to the next one then. I made a note of what the top vote getters were
Well,
here.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. I have a question here on this. So, I wonder, Paul, do you have so here at 360, we use Via Neo as our business validation tool, and it has some internal scorecards and things. Have you thought about, like, is there a tool or um, a a resource for evaluating like this? You say rate each channel from 1 to 5 across 4 dimensions, but is there a way to interpret this? Like, where should we, I'm always thinking about, we create these scores so that we can put them as data points into our system as a as a as a data point. So I just wonder, is this something that you've already have done as a uh, like a tool or a dashboard, or is this something that maybe we can adapt here as a additional compass to help our teams, like
Yep. Tell
um
me, the tool that you mentioned, Chandler, I'm not familiar with that. Can you just
yeah.
give us a quick
So
summary of what it does?
high level, the Via Neo it's a digital business, it's a digital product market fit tool, and it has five different steps in a hopscotch: desirability, feasibility, acceptability, legitimacy, and there's one more. Anyway, so the acceptability, anyway, there's the five steps, and we take teams through, and each as we go through the different five steps of the hopscotch, there's evaluations, and so and kind of a scorecard that we complete that aligns with the different phases in this product market fit. And so this, I'm thinking, is like we do a market analysis where it's like at this point in time, how's your market maturity look? And I'm
Mhm.
thinking this also picking the right as we get closer down in the acceptability phase where we're designing the offer, the initial product offering, to do this as a scorecard, right? Like to create this as a scorecard for, because this is something that's really hard. The right channel, the right thing. And I was just talking with a founder this morning who said it's for them. They need to be quick to market, and there's a cost to not being quick to market. But then, they're looking at kind of a much longer term marketing plan and using legacy brands in store to sell. So there's some it's one of the things we talked about today. How do I help him decide?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so thank you for that. That sounds really cool, and I can envision how each of those elements of the scoring rubric, a tool could go in and pull all kinds of interesting metadata and use, some probabilistic algorithm to come up with like a ranking mechanism and to say, all right, if these are the 20 different channels you could sell in, here's based on what's important to you and based on where you sit in the market and all these other factors, we're going to stack rank them for you, and that would be invaluable. The truth is, I take a pretty low tech approach when it comes to these conversations because generally the concept of choosing sales channels in my experience, is also part of a broader go-to-market discussion. And so the go-to-market discussion might have 25 moving parts, of which this is one. And more often than not, what I find is there's kind of information overload. So what I would typically recommend is if your team has the appetite for tools like that, by all means, go for it. This framework can be a good proxy. And even if it doesn't give you the list you're looking for, just challenging yourselves to think about the answers to these questions can open up new perspectives. It's like talking to a business coach, right? A business coach, what makes a business coach good? They just know how to ask questions and they know how to lead you to the answer. And the process of leading you to the answer is illuminating. And sometimes what you come up with is 10 wrong answers, which eventually gets you to the right one. I look at it the same way. So what I would say is this is a framework that could at least be a kind of a bold step forward to say, all right, we never took the trouble to think through how do these all compare to one another. Let's use a framework like this just to bring some objectivity to it, right? They're going to score anywhere from 0 to 20, one or 5 to 20, and that'll at least tell us where we want to start prioritizing, and then we go from there. Okay, so Another challenge that the group talked about was articulating the value proposition. And this one's actually a lot of fun. I really like this. One thing I want to say from the start, every time I've done one of these workshops, this slide makes it into the top three, always. It's something we all struggle with. Even the most gifted marketers in the world struggle with this. But it's also fun because I don't care what your background is, what you're good at, not good at. We all have the ability to cross the finish line on this. We can all achieve a good result here because well, all it comes down to is how well do you know your product and the mission of your company? Um, Even failing all else, you have a head start if you can just answer that. So really what it all comes down to is the problem you're solving. Now, this is not a bold statement. I'm not going to blow anybody's hair back by saying that, but it's a good reminder, right? Basically, there's no reason to be in business if you're not solving someone else's problem. Why? Because problem solving is kind of the only reason people spend money on anything, right? I mean, if you're buying software, it's to make something easier or faster. If you're, buying a vehicle, it's to get from point A to point B. Even if you're buying, a monthly subscription to Netflix, you're solving the problem of what to do when you're bored. So there's always a problem at the root of it, and it's a good ethos for us to really cling to. Within that, you can really articulate, well, what is the customer's pain here too? I mean, this idea of pain is something that's well known, well understood. So I'm not going to sign my name to that and say I came up with that. But I can go one further. So if you know what your customer's pain is, what is the medicine that you're offering? And one better, are you a vitamin or a painkiller? And by that I mean, do you present your product or solution before they feel the pain for them to avoid the pain and they're willing to spend money on it because they know that pain and don't want to experience it? Or do you present your product or service on the back end once they're in a difficult spot? Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's one or the other. So actually, I'll open this up to the floor. Does anyone want to volunteer to answer these 4 questions for their business? I will prioritize any of you, but if we don't have any takers, I'm willing to do this for my own startup and would also invite you to give me feedback. But I'll give it a few more seconds in case anybody wants to step forward.
Yeah, I would like to see though, like, so what I'm solving is like, it's fragmented. Like the solution that we are seeing, like the most, we are providing an end-to-end solution, and most of the stuff are fragmented in the market right now. So we are articulating all those stuffs so that the customer get a good fee, good end-to-end solution. That's what we are trying to solve.
What is the problem that the customer has that makes them willing to spend money?
Because they want to spend a lot of money, right? Rather going with a different team, and even they don't get a good solution. So we are kind of like aggregating all those stuff, and we are providing some insights as well. As of now, there is no insights provided to them how to solve it and how to resolve the problem. That's we are addressing that side. So it's kind of like a productivity improvement. So it's a lot of cost like cost reduction on their end. It also is more scalable and also have uh, more efficient. That's what I can say.
Okay, so
I was not able to give more insight. Is we are still in the stealth mode, so
got it.
yeah.
Okay. No, I understand it. Sometimes it's challenging to answer this if you can't speak freely about your solution.
That's yeah.
So I will use myself as the guinea pig here, and
Mhm.
I'll describe to you to the group what my company Atlas Primer, how it works through this lens. So What is the problem we are solving? Modern sales, enterprise selling, complex B2B selling really requires a mastery of conversation because you can't sell through big enterprise deals without building trust. Now, building those skills takes a long time. And for junior sellers or people who are not comfortable doing sales, which includes founders a lot of times, how do you get that practice? It can be hard to come by. Either you practice by yourself, but you don't get feedback, or you ask someone to listen and give feedback, but then you're taking them away from their job. And if I'm a junior sales rep and I ask my boss to listen to me pitch, maybe I get one or two chances. But how much better would I be at that pitch if I could do it 50 times over and over and over again until I go from a fail to a D to a C to a B plus to an A plus, right? So the problem we're solving is the inefficiency of conversational practice in sales organizations. What is my customer's pain? It might be that it's expensive to have sales managers sit in those mock pitches and provide feedback. It might be that enterprise deal cycles are long and we need a way to speed them up by making people more effective at building trust with their clients. So you can measure it in various ways. I would even argue that for individual salespeople, especially younger ones at the start of their career, they're probably thinking, how long before robots can do my job? And their pain is, what are the human skills that I can get better at that cannot be replicated by AI? And so that's a type of customer pain as well. So those are three examples. The medicine we're offering, safe space to practice 24/7 with a very low monthly cost on a SaaS license. You and your sales organization can upload personas of the types of clients you're trying to pitch. You can bring in their LinkedIn profile. You can upload your product documentation or your objection handling or whatever it might be. And we're giving you a clone of that person or a clone of that scenario to practice as much as you want. And I would say we are both a vitamin and a painkiller. Proactive sales organizations will invest in Atlas Primer ahead of the curve because they know the importance of investing in their people and their professional development. Or it's a painkiller if they find that deals are slowing down, that clients are walking away from contracts at the 11th hour, and this is corrective action that they can take. So those are some examples of how this particular business would look in a framework like that. And really, what it comes down to is you're answering a very, very simple question: why you? Why you and not the next person or the next person after that, right? Because basically everywhere you look, there's competition. Everybody is in every business. Everybody's a founder. Everybody is an entrepreneur or a consultant or something. And why you becomes more and more important. So how do you do it differently? Why don't the other ways work? And really kind of getting on your toes instead of being on your heels, explaining away these competitive disadvantages. And of course, the ability to quantify all this is very helpful. If you can't, doesn't mean you can't make the sale, but it's harder. I think we would agree it's harder. And so you can look at that in terms of commercial impact. This is the impact of the revenue. This is social impact. We've moved the needle on some, community KPI, whatever it might be. Duolingo is a great example of this. They are crystal clear in their value proposition. Learn a language for free forever. I mean, it doesn't get easier than that. Now you know exactly what they offer, what it costs, how long will it be for free. And the world's best way to learn a language is another tagline that I've seen there. very provocative, very aggressive, right? There are a lot of other solutions out there. There's Berlitz, there's Rosetta Stone, there's a bunch of universities offering their own training, and yet Duolingo claims that they're the best. So how do they do it? Well, there's a framework that I want you to consider for your own business, and you can do this on your own, so you don't have to exit stealth mode. And it consists of 5 points. There's the who, there's the what, the how. These are easy. The alternative. So if not you, what is the next guy offering? And the differentiation. And these are different from one another, number 4 and number 5. So let's look at how Duolingo did it. If you're not familiar with Mad Libs, I'll give you a quick background. Mad Libs, when I was a kid, these were really fun. You'd play these on, it's like a notebook where a story is written and all of the nouns and verbs and adjectives are removed. And then on the next page, there is a list of all the words that should go in that place. And so you're looking at a blank list and you're saying, number 1, a noun, number 2, a verb, number 3, an adjective with no context. And then you go and plug those into the story, and it turns into this really silly narrative that makes no sense, but sometimes makes people laugh. But the Mad Libs model actually works really well when you look at it here, because we're taking these 5 points and we're basically saying we help who achieve what by how. Unlike the alternative, we differentiate in this way, right? And so how does Duolingo do it? We help language learners. We're helping language learners achieve their desired level of fluency. So now I know it's not just about expertise. Maybe I just need a few words for my next vacation. Okay, that's good. How do they do it? By gamifying the learning process. Well, that stands out because now we've differentiated from Rosetta Stone and Berlitz. If you've done those courses, they're not fun like Duolingo is. Unlike textbooks and tutors, which are much of the legacy competition, we make our lessons bite-sized and we make them convenient. So I urge you to try this exercise for yourselves. And it's, show it to somebody else, show it to your business partner, show it to somebody who's not connected to your business at all. You might get different reactions, but they're both going to be useful, is my guess. So quick time check. We have about 12 minutes left. I know there's supposed to be some time for Q&A, so we could either open it up for Q&A, or I could do one more go-to-market challenge. Does anybody have a preference?
I think you
One
can
more?
avoid
Oh,
more. Yeah.
Okay, one more.
Line.
So the last one that I have here is packaging. Packaging and pricing, and both really are important. So we've all seen the relationship between pricing and perception. There's like the famous adage of the bake sale, where 3 cookies are selling for $1 and no one's buying them. And then the marketing expert comes in and takes off all the pricing labels and puts on a new label. And now they cost $2 or $3. And all of a sudden they start flying off the shelves. Why? Because the perception is, if it's $1, is this cookie any good? Right? And so the same could be true for the products and services you're selling. Now, if you're running a venture studio, that's a little bit different, because of course these aren't necessarily, sort of like retail transactions. But I think you get the idea. And so over the years, we've become really savvy as entrepreneurs about how to flex different models. I love the freemium model, where we effectively are using the loss leader, right? We're saying, hey, look, you can use my product. The freemium version, it has some of the features, it's going to cost me a little bit to offer it to you, but you're going to be so hooked that you can't give it up. And really, it's a very clever marketing tactic when it's done well. But of course, then from there, you want to think about your pricing strategies. Are you pricing based on the value? So I met earlier, as one of my communities, I met with a tax strategist who his pitch to me was, I'm not a CPA. I don't do tax prep. You don't hire me to do your tax return. What I do is I find tax incentives, and I can do this because I am not a CPA. By definition, a CPA is trained in compliance, which basically means they can't be creative. Instead, I can be creative. I don't get the letters behind my name, but I can be creative and find loopholes and be a real strategic partner to you to orchestrate a tax strategy that will save you money. So I asked him, how do you price your services? And he said, honestly, I just take a look at one or two returns and I can get a pretty good sense of how much money I'll save them. And then I'll usually come up with a price tag that's roughly half of that. It's pretty amazing. That is value-based pricing, right? I'm going to save you $200,000. You just need to pay me $100,000. Who wouldn't do that deal? Well, there's going to be a need for some guarantees, right? There's going to be, they're going to look hard at that contract, but guy's been in business for 30 years, so he's doing something right. And there are many ways to look at the different pricing strategies. I'm not a business school professor, so you don't need to hear those from me. But I think it's useful also to look for that validation, and especially if you're running a venture studio. This is one of the earliest things that some of those cohort participants are going to need to do, is to just get out there and say, if I offered you this, what would you be willing to pay? And then separately, if I offered you this, what sort of value would it bring to you? And then the third piece is, this value, what would that be worth to you, right? And so effectively, you're taking all those variables and you're just making like a 2x2 matrix of all of them. It's so important to get those data points and also to think about who you're asking, right? Because different people are going to have different propensity to pay. These can be A/B tested. I come from the advertising world. One thing that a lot of people don't talk about with paid media is the ability to very quickly validate offers, right? So what if I was in the innovation consulting business and I had two different messages that I wanted to test. One is, I am your innovation department on retainer, and I'm offering you the first month free. Or I will run an innovation project for you, and I'll do the audit upfront for free. So in both cases, I'm offering that value, but I'm putting it in a different wrapper, a different context, and that might really resonate very differently. And so just looking at the click-through rate, looking at the engagement rate, if you have analytics on your website, you can start to see which ad got people not only to your site, but maybe got them to look around a little bit and see, a few more pages. These are all signals that you can use. Same, of course, can be said for pilot offers, where you say, hey, look, we're going to offer you this engagement at a reduced or zero cost, right? Now, that's not something you might be able to test with ads, but you could handpick a half dozen prospects and see how they respond, right? So always be looking for that validation. I think Starbucks does a great job of this, because not only have they managed to, package their product, recognizable color scheme and logos, and look, the stores, they all more or less look the same, but just different enough to be interesting. But I mean, they wrote the book on price anchoring. They don't even use small, medium, and large. They have their own words for small, medium, and large. And they have a loyalty program. Now, you might say, well, that's counterintuitive. How is a loyalty program going to raise the average transaction? Well, it might not, except that the data usually shows that loyalty programs save the customer X, but then because they're coming to your store so much, they actually end up buying 3X. And so now there are sometimes higher transactions, certainly higher customer lifetime values. And so I think we can learn a lot. And I would say this is a good example of how to learn from one of the best in the business at packaging and pricing. They've also managed to command a premium price for what is a pretty average product. I mean, that's my opinion. Maybe others don't agree, but there's a lot of indie coffee shops out there that occupy the premium side of the market, and Starbucks has been overcharging for their coffee for years, so they're doing something right. Tactically, how can you put this to use? So think about 4 dimensions. Can you deliver some cost savings? Can you deliver some time savings? Are you avoiding some kind of pain, or are you just padding your top line and gaining more revenue? You want to check one or more of these boxes, and it's a through line for your whole packaging and pricing strategy. So think about your energy platform, your innovation consulting practice, your venture studio, and think about everything we offer. Why would anybody hire us or sign a contract with us and list every answer to that question? And then think about a matrix where some of those benefits will help them save time. We will broker introductions to investors. That could save you a lot of time. It could also save you the pain of having to conduct cold email campaigns only to be told no, right? So that's an example of something that a venture studio might be able to offer that checks a few boxes, right? And once you can assign a monetary value to that, you start saying, hey, founders, imagine if you had to spend half your time prospecting for investors. How many dozens of hours a week are you wasting? Well, what's an hour of your time worth? What's 30 or 40 hours of your time worth every single week, right? And then you can sort of create that perceived value number, and you can put that alongside your current pricing. And the idea is that your current pricing is going to be a fraction of the value. Hopefully, in your customer's eyes, they're going to agree that all of these different benefits check boxes in each of these 4 columns. If they don't, that's a marketing problem. But if they do, you're on your way to a better packaging and pricing type of a platform.
Thank you, Paul. We have 2 minutes now. I don't know if you were on your way to an ending note or a last word you would like to say. I would like to thank everybody that joined us today.
No, I think we're in a good
Paul,
spot here,
Good.
Claude. Thank you. I appreciate everybody's participation, and really enjoyed the conversation, the chance to meet you all, and certainly feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I would be happy to support you in any way I can. I'll put my link.
If you had just to end, if you had one tip to give to these social ventures these venture studios or anybody who is working on their go-to-market strategy.
One tip, a single tip. I'm just going to get very philosophical. Don't listen to any of your haters. If take feedback, yes, but never let someone talk you out of something that is the right thing, especially with social impact.
Thank you so much. And everybody will see you. Please follow us on LinkedIn. Here is Paul's link here. And we'll be happy to stay connected. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It was great
Bye.
insight. Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Claude.